No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for... it's time for the... it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be with you, and I hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th of July. I know we've been away for a little bit, but let's get going. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located in beautiful St. Simons Island, Georgia. If you notice, I'm donning the newest edition of Sal's T-shirt line, so check that out. You can check out the menu by visiting the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, and hopefully I don't have to spell that for you. You can get it, I'm sure. Or you can give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Today's show is also being brought to you in part by JKJ Boxing Magazine. Get your issue now. You can get it for free by visiting our website, www.billycboxing.com, and clicking on the JKJ Boxing Magazine, which is located on the right-hand side of the screen. And today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage, The Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of it right now by visiting barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. If you're looking to get a signed copy, fear not. Visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section and follow the directions. A lot of stuff we want to talk about. It feels like we haven't been doing the show for a while. As you know, we did a live event from Sal's facility down in St. Simons Island for the Sean Porter and Keith Thurman fight, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We got some emails to read. There's some thoughts on a fight that took place this past weekend. We got some news. We got Dax Khan scheduled to join us a little bit to give us the lowdown on what's going on in social media. But joining me right now is the man himself, Sal Rocky Senecola. What's up, Sal?
Hey, good morning, Billy C. How are you?
Not too bad, my man. Not too bad. And I before we get going here, I got a couple of emails to read, and we'll give my thoughts and get your thoughts. But first and foremost, thank you for a great time as usual down at your place for the Thurman-Porter fight, which was a lot of fun. And I tell you the truth, our man Coach joined us, man. That was a pretty that was a pleasant surprise, wasn't it?
Wow. Right from the left field, all of a sudden I see the gentleman walk up with his lovely wife, and you knew who he was. I never met Coach. I didn't know what he looked like. And then all of a sudden I put two and two together because I'm kind of quick like that. And wow, it was a great surprise. Great surprise. I want to thank Coach for coming down. And I also want to thank Coach for that beautiful shirt. He gave me that sports shirt for his business. So it was great, that boxing gym. Very good.
If anybody missed our pre- and post-fight shows, you can go check them out up on ldltv.com and the Talking Boxing with Billy C. Ustream page. We broadcasted live, and we had a lot of fun. And speaking of Coach, I just want to give a shout out to his wife, who's very patient because Coach likes to wear that hat. Remember the hat that was all shredded and 100 years old? But fear not. If you see the video of Coach and you feel sorry for him because he just won't remove that hat, his wife told us that he has his going out hat, the one he's been saving. So we can all relate to that. I know I can, that's for sure. But we also want to thank the Sea Palms, man. They pulled some strings to get my fat ass in there, right?
Oh, boy, let me tell you something, Billy. You came down on one of the premier weeks. Right now, seasons are full, all capacity. We are maxed out. And Sea Palms, I want to thank the management team, the ownership team there, Al Luciano and Tim and all those guys out there, man. They put it all together for us, and they were able to accommodate you in fashion and style. And like I said, we have a great rapport, a great relationship with them, and CPOMs has always come through for us, as the King and Prince does too. But I was glad we worked with CPOMs this time.
Yeah, no, yeah, I like both places. They're both fantastic, and
they are.
Next time I come down, I got to remember to bring a fishing rod, man, because I didn't realize that I could have right out where I was staying. I could have walked and thrown a line in there, and I like to do that. The kids were doing it, and I figured, some old guy standing next to them, it wouldn't have been bad. But
no.
anyway, a lot of stuff seems to have happened since we've been away. But let me get some emails out of the way. Now, I just want to start off and say this. I know that a lot of you sent some emails to us over the last week or so. I kind of screwed up. I deleted some. So if I don't get to your email, either today or tomorrow, please resend it again, because yours might have been one of the ones that got deleted by mistake. So this first one is from Raheem. He says, this weekend was a knockout. He wrote this right after the Thurman-Porter. He said, this was a knockout weekend with Thurman-Porter. My dad and I gathered here in Chicago with our family and friends, and we enjoyed a great fight. Now, he made a statement about somebody I'm not going to refer to, so I'm just not going to go to that. He says, I do think that that Porter won this fight on my scorecard, 114-113. I thought body punches by Porter were not taken into the scorecards by the judges, and when they scored it unanimous for Thurman, I was thinking that the judges are biased towards a boxer that lands shots to the body and don't take that into account. I find it a common thing nowadays that judges just go for punches that budges, I think he means that I find a comment today that judges just, I think he's trying to say that judges don't count the punches to the body, and they just are interested in the headhunters. That forces boxers to not utilize all the ways you can fight, kind of like a pitcher who has ways to get a batter out without having to strike out the batter. A pitcher can work a count and get out by ground balls, flies, etc. In your opinion, is the art of body shots a lost form? He thinks it is, and it's too bad because he thought Porter won, and he thought because of the body work. I hope that we can have a rematch or a trilogy, because I think Porter can knock out Thurman if he's given a second chance. But he says, I'm afraid that Thurman's not going to give him a rematch because he wants to keep his O intact. Interesting point, Raheem.
Interesting.
Because I agree with a lot of it. First and foremost, I want to say this, Sal. The fight was a great fight. To me, it's everything that we wanted it to be. We're talking about Keith Thurman against Sean Porter. The fight turned out to be everything that we wanted, everything we expected. And I hope we see a rematch. Now, as far as the scores go, as far as I'm concerned, Sal, it was a close fight. I wouldn't have argued if the scores came out 114-113 in favor of Porter, in favor of Thurman. I scored the fight a draw. I mean, that's what I loved about the fight. It was close, could have been anyone's fight, and I don't consider it a robbery just because the judges didn't score it the way I did. But I do agree with Raheem that I believe, and one of the reasons why I felt that Porter did eke out the fight like Raheem did, the same score. Actually, I had it a draw, but I thought it could have been eked out by Porter because of the body work. And I don't know if they're keeping track of the body work. What's your thoughts?
Well, I love punching the body myself in my day, and let me tell you, body shots are great. They're a great attack, and usually combinations and winning a fight, it all starts with the body on when you have some opponents. As this confrontation was between Porter and Thurman, it was a great classic style matchup. And I did see the shots that Porter landed on Thurman. And I was hoping that the judge would take those in consideration. But I still saw the fight. Remember, Billy, I had a hard time picking the winner. I vacillated a little bit.
A hard time. You change your mind every 5 minutes. I mean, we have it all on tape, too.
Let me tell you why. You know me. I wear my heart on my sleeve on some level. My heart wanted definitely see Sean Porter win this fight. I like Porter. I wanted to see him win this fight. But I'm telling you, here's the disappointing thing. I felt in my heart of hearts, if I bet with my heart, I was going to be wrong. I just felt that Keith Thurman was going to pull out what he did, and he did it. And I'm going to tell you another thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, because I think it would be a super rematch fight and a great opportunity for Porter to learn what he should have learned when they sparred 3 years ago. Remember I told you I found that old sparring session, they went about 5-6 rounds?
Yeah, but
And
wait,
said,
hold on, because we'll talk about the fight a little bit more. I want to get these emails out of my way, and I know where you're going, but let's just wait a second, because when I bring up the scores, we'll talk. And I just want to say this, Sal is very, to this day, he works the body, and as a matter of fact, just before he came on air, he had a muffin to work his body, and he likes to keep working that body, and a muffin a day or 2 or 3 muffins a day helps him stay in top physical condition. We have another email. This one's from Alex T. He's actually got 2 points. He says, I think having, and the topic of this was the PBC ratings. This was a follow-up from one of our last shows. He says, I think having these fights on so many different channels really hurt the PBC ratings. I listen to your show every day, and there are at least 4 other websites that I check constantly for boxing news, and I don't even know when the hell these fights are on. And the start times are all over the place, too. Some of the channels I don't even get. What the hell is Estrella? It's not on my cable system. Just FYI, Estrella isn't the PBC. That's the Golden Boy deal. But he says, and you simply can't ignore the fact that the ridiculous amount of title belts have made the average Joe uninterested. I don't even know who the champs are anymore. You tell me a guy's name and I can tell you whether or not he's a fighter worth watching. But other than that, I'm just as lost as everyone else. It's a shame, too, because that Joe Smith card was a good show. I think Alex T hits it on the head here, Sal, because, as much as we are being blessed with boxing on TV, which certainly we have been of late, I tell you what, it isn't promoted that well. He's right about the boxing news websites, ours included. It's very hard to get these press releases so that we can post the news. It just seems like they're living in a shell world. I don't know, man. Do you find what Alex is saying true?
I do find that, because the pathway to find the boxing matches on TV are really or virtually unheard of. And it's so funny, Bill. Saturday night we had a woman that came in. She works for the PBC, and she's the one behind a lot of this boxing. She gave me her name. I couldn't recall her right now, but she sat last week with Sugar Ray Leonard and somebody else. She was telling me a conversation they had, and they're all for it. And they felt very good on this angle that the PBC is going to continue to go forward, and they feel really good. I don't know what the mechanics with Al Heyman and the money and all that stuff, but she sounded very excited that they're gaining some momentum and some favorable signs that make them want to try to resurrect boxing in a household. So I love what I heard from her. So we'll see what happens. But they definitely have to have an easier pathway to market the fights, to be out there, so people can start tuning in when they should.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been in on that conversation. Hey, you know what, Sal? Last time you were here, it sounded like you were at a bird sanctuary. Now it sounds like you got rattlesnakes all around you. What the hell's going on?
Let me tell you something.
What do you got, locusts?
That's what you call your technology,
Jeez.
which I not that I oppose it. I just am a slow learner with it. But I'm able to be mobile. And I came down to see my girlfriend, Kayla, who you know, and we are down in St. Augustine, and tomorrow I will be back up on St. Simon's. So I have all these Area 51s that I utilize when I can.
as long as the
different backdrop.
Yeah, as long as the rattlesnakes don't get you, maybe get snatched. Don't you and Kayla stay away from water. You might get snatched by an alligator. I don't know. But Alex has another thought. He says. This one is concerning Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya. He says the most head-scratching and baffling aspect to this train wreck that is the Triple G Canelo fight is that Oscar De La Hoya is at the center of it. It blows my mind because Oscar fought everybody from junior lightweight to middleweight, and he took risks that he didn't have to, like the Ike Corte fight, and there are a slew of other names on his record that younger fans don't even know, but were very dangerous opponents, not to mention the Hall of Famers he fought. This guy was matched tough right out of the gate. He never fought one single fighter with a losing record. So I'm baffled. What does he know about Canelo and the rest of us don't? Oscar lost a few fights. No big deal. It never affected his marketability because his fans knew he only fought the best, and you were going to get your money's worth every time you tuned into one of his fights. Canelo already has an out if he was to lose to Golovkin. He said he is not a natural 160-pound fighter. All I can come up with that Canelo truly doesn't want to fight this guy. Nothing else makes sense in this scenario. I disagree that a year from now this fight will be any bigger than it would be now. How can Canelo get any more popular? I'm trying to remember any fighter who was more avoided than Triple G in my lifetime, and I can't come up with anyone. But that's because years ago, the best wanted to fight the best. I had recently, I read recently that Danny Jacobs said he wants to fight Triple G for his legacy. Then in the same article, he says the fight has to make dollar cents for him to agree to the match. What a joke. Can't say it any better than Alex T just said it, Sal.
Alex T just took the words right out of my mouth, and kudos to him, boy. I'll tell you, that was great. And I agree with everything he had said.
No
Everything.
question.
It made a lot of sense. And
100%.
yes, I agree on a lot of things about Canelo and Alvarez. He's Canelo Alvarez. Yep. It was a great email.
I agree with you 100%. And Alex, I think that, the fights have to be made. And as I got one more email here, and then we'll get into the Porter fight. And that fight, everybody wanted it, got made. And look how much success it was. The ratings were sky high. People are still talking about it, like we're going to in a couple of seconds here. And we can't wait for a rematch, The problem with a fight like that, especially how it was presented, and I'm jumping the gun here, is now we need another one, and what we're going to get, Canelo's fighting a layup fight, Kovalev's fighting Monday night, layup fight, Andre Ward, his next fight, layup fight. I mean, so we don't have any super big fights in the near future, which kind of suck, and I think that boxing could survive if we were treated to at least a mega matchup once a month. And as long as these guys, weren't afraid to lose their O and understand that their markability, just like Alex T writes here, isn't going to suffer for it, can only help the sport. I don't know, man. What do you think, real quick?
No, that's right. It's the same thing. You and I are on the same page 9 times out of 10, and this is definitely one of the 9 times out of 10.
There you go.
Right,
as long as it's not that 10th time.
No, as long as it's not the 10th time. Hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
I got one more email. This
Go
was
ahead.
from
Go.
my man Angel from Madison, Wisconsin. He says, "Hola, Senor C. Again, I want to give you guys props for the morning show. The morning show and its sports and other topics makes it unique, and it has a good morning vibe. Keep it up, because keep it up here in Madtown. We dig it." Okay. Madtown. Oh, I guess that's what they call Madison, Wisconsin. Madison, Wisconsin. Before I read it, it just doesn't sound like Madtown. Maybe just because of the word. Madison seems like a nice, laid-back kind of, sort of like St. Simon's. That's what it sounds like to me. But anyway, he says, I want to ask you guys about promoters in boxing. Who is your opinion is the greatest promoter of all time, and how important is a promoter in today's boxing? Growing up, Don King to me was the promoter who always stood out and had a way of making the most key fights happen in the correct time. And correct me if I'm wrong, he was one of the few promoters who would find ways for his fighters to unify or be undisputed champions for that fighter's weight class. I think of Gomez, Tyson Trinidad, Holyfield, Chavez as examples of fighters that he negotiated deals in trying to unify titles as the undisputed majority belt holder of the belts. When I think of Arum or other promoters, I just don't see that same sort of work. Why is that? And why is King so despised to the public when, in fact, he was able to bring out the fights that the public wanted and negotiate purses never seen before his time or after? Well, first and foremost, I will say this, Sal. As far as my man Angel goes, I personally think that Don King, when all is said and done, will be considered the best promoter of all time. He did make the fights. Bob Arum isn't a bad promoter either. I think Bob Arum, because he has said some kind of crazy things, I think he gets a lot of negativity. Maybe people are overlooking his accomplishments. But Don King, even though there were some great promoters, and I could go back, back in the bare knuckle days, talk about a great promoter. These guys used to get 5,000 and 10,000 people show up for a fight when they would sell tickets without a date, a time, or a location on them. That's promoting a fight, when you can, get 10,000 people to show up when you didn't even know where it was, So to me, that's good. But Don King definitely made you feel that if you didn't buy a ticket to one of his events, you were missing out on something. And I personally think he was the greatest promoter of all time. When all's said and done, at least in my lifetime, I can't see another one coming even close to him. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think, as you just said, I'll reiterate that Don King, when all is said and done, will be looked at as one of the greatest promoters of all time. And he did bring some great fights. And Bob Arum, nothing taken away from him. He is also a very good promoter. But Don King was a salesman. Don King is still a salesman. Don King was able to market the hype and deliver the meat. He gave us the fluff to sell it, but he provided us and gave us the stuff with the substance that we bit into, and I like that.
In other words, he gave us the sizzle and the steak.
There you go. Good way to say that too, Billy C.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll bail you out of that one, Sal. No problem. He gave us the sizzle and the steak. He gave us the pizza. He gave us the pizza with the cheese. With the cheese, we got the pizza.
With the cheese.
Yeah,
he did. And you know what? He gets a lot of bad rap. And I don't know too much about what happens, but the bottom line is, if Don King was such a thief and everything else that all these other big fighters had said he was, he wouldn't be out and about the way he is. Well, so there's got to be some things. I think a lot of it is with Don King. You look at some of these big fighters he's had in the past. They fight for millions and millions of dollars. And, these fighters burn through cash and money all the time. They probably will say, hey, Don, can I have an advance? I'm going to fight for $10 million next week or next month. And, they don't take into consideration they're going to get a $500,000 or $1 million advance. And then after all is said and done, the purse is divided up, 10% off the top, 33 to 30 to the manager. Oh, by the way, Don lent me $1 million. That's taken back. Oh, we're going to put some aside from taxes. Yeah, it goes fast. But no way could I see Don King being a thief. So I think he gets a lot of raw bites and raw deals and a lot of things negative said about him. But I think he's one of the greatest promoters of my time. And you know what? I regret not going with him because I think he would have at least brought me to the water and give me that opportunity for a title shot.
Well, the thing is that obviously every promoter at some time either negotiated a deal with a fighter or something that didn't make the fighter feel warm and cozy. Okay, but in a nutshell, I'm going to say this, then we're going to move on. Is simply this: Don King, and this doesn't happen. This happens in all sports. Okay, it's like this. Don King would go to a fighter. A fighter says, I want $2 million to fight. Don King says, I'll give you $500,000. A fighter says, forget about it. And then, they negotiate, and the fighter finally agrees to $1 million. And Don King would, typically, his style would be, he would give him a bag full of cash, $500,000, half the money right up front, bam. So the fighter walks out of that office with a smile on his face, thinking he got what he wanted. He's got, big bag of money. Then the next day he reads in a newspaper, when people used to read newspapers, and it says that Don King is making $9 million on the fight. Now the fighter feels that he got screwed, and he feels Don King screwed him because Don's making $9 and he's making $1. It's the same thing in football or baseball. In football, a guy signs a 5-year deal. He's making $5 million a year, and then 2 years into his contract, the guy playing next to him signs a deal for making $7 million a year. Now he feels that he wants to renegotiate his contract. The bottom line is this: you sign a contract, you shut the F up. You follow through the contract, and then it's time to renegotiate after the contract is done. That's my opinion. What's your quick thoughts?
You know what? 100%. You're right. And I'm telling you right now, Don King is a businessman, and he's a smart businessman. And that's why he's been successful. That's why he does what he does. And yes, it's all about business, and he does it business to the T the best he can, and how other people interpret it and try to tweak it to their liking is after the fact. The first time I met Don King, he came to my hometown of Rivervale. I grew up with Billy Goodman, and Bobby Goodman, and Murray Goodman. Murray Goodman was the father, worked with Don King in my town of Rivervale. Murray Goodman once brought Don King to my little Pascack Brook golf course, and that's when I first met Don King. We had a big golf outing, a lot of fighters there. Lou Duva was there, and Don King came to me. I just won the Golden Gloves. I was 16 years old, and he said, son, who's your favorite fighter? I said, Mr. King, I love you. You're a great guy. And, my favorite fighter of all time, who I try to emulate style, is Roberto Duran. He said, well, I'll tell you what, son. I'm promoting the Duran Viruet, Edwin Viruet, or Adolfo Viruet championship fight. And we have a press conference tomorrow or this week in Philadelphia at the Spectrum. I want you to come down there as my guest, and I want to introduce you to Roberto Duran. And sure enough, the guy did that, and that's exactly how my relationship started with Don King. Great guy.
That's cool, man. That's you know, Don did stuff like that. He took care of me one time for the Roy Jones Jr. fight, and I'll never forget it. But anyway, let's talk about the big fight that we did at your place, and I feel it. I feel it really helped the sport. Of course, I'm talking about Keith Thurman against Sean Porter.
Great fight.
It was what boxing needed. It's almost like it was too good, because now what do we do? You know, what's now? You know, both the fight Thurman against Porter met our expectations. It lived up to everything we wanted it to. It was an exciting fight from the first bell all the way until the anticipation of who won the fight. It was that close. And then the end result is now what? You know, hopefully we'll get a rematch. You know, what's gonna happen then? You know, Sal, you and I have talked about this fight a couple of times since it's taken place, and obviously during our pre and post fight shows. But my opinion, still, you know, like you, I kind of was rooting, but unlike you, I picked Porter from the beginning, and I stuck with it. You know, I didn't flip flop like you did every day, but every minute, every 5 minutes, But
I didn't bet with my heart this time. Bet with my head.
Well,
my head
yeah. What's time?
Correct.
What's time? Yeah, you know. I mean, you change your mind.
I thought Thurman was going to win. I wanted Porter, so I said, "Yeah, Porter's going to win." But I really knew that. I felt my heart of hearts, my mind, that Thurman was going to pull it out, and he did. Whether everyone saw it that way or not, I just felt he was going to.
Well,
but go ahead. Allow me to retract.
Here's okay. Slip. Okay, Slip. But listen,
I was going to say, call me Slip Mahoney, Norm Crosby, but I'm going to start getting my points across one way or the other.
I know. The bottom line is this: I think Sean Porter. I thought he did everything well except two things. One, he just doesn't really know how to cut off a ring, or he does know how to cut off the ring, but he doesn't know what to do after. He was busy. He was in shape. I said to you, as a matter of fact, when we talked last night, I said the biggest problem with Sean Porter is he's not an accurate puncher. He's like lightning. Do I mean he's got hand speed like lightning? No. I mean, he doesn't hit the same spot twice like lightning. You know, I mean, if he connected a few more times, I think he hurts Thurman in this fight. When he did nail Thurman, Thurman got rocked. Now, wait a minute. All due respect, Thurman rocked Sean Porter several times in the fight. I think that because of his inaccuracies, I think that set up Thurman for his counterpunching, which he does very well. What's your overall thought of that fight?
Same thing. You know what? We talked about it, like you said, and I saw, what I liked about this fight. Both fighters, and we knew we would be talking about these points. They came in to fight. They both came in to win. They were well conditioned. They punched bell for bell, bell to bell for 12 rounds. But I agree. When I saw, and I'm going to tell you right now, when I started feeling a little bit a couple weeks ago, when I saw that sparring session, that I think Thurman's camp posted for a reason. There was about a 5 or 6 round sparring session that's out there on YouTube between Sean Porter and Keith Thurman. I think it was in Keith Thurman's gym. It happened 3 years ago. And I watched it several times. And I saw, in my opinion, that although it was a close sparring session and it was just sparring, that there were things about Porter that I hope that he would have taken advantage of learning and doing differently. And I thought that Thurman won that sparring session if it was going to be something you had to look at and choose who got the best of who. And I said that to you. And I said, well, I just hope that Porter takes what he could learn from there and has changed his style. I said he kind of bobs, he jumps back, he bounces on his toes with his hands bouncing down. I said he lunged in a little bit. I said he wasn't accurate with his punching ability. And you said, Sally, he really hasn't changed. He's just, an effective fighter. And boom, you know what? This was that sparring session, only the whole distance in a real scenario. So that's why I changed my mind, and I thought that Thurman was going to pull this out. And you're right. was just his swarming style. I'll call it like that because I did a lot of the same style. That's why I liked Porter. I wanted him to win. And, he was aggressive. He couldn't really effectively cut off the ring, but he had his opportunities. He had his chances. He did hurt Thurman, and Thurman hurt him back. But when I saw the swarming style and the overwhelming attack that put Thurman on defensive posturing, that he just couldn't deliver the shots onto the target it needed. They were just coming at all angles and landing in all different positions, not the effective positions that a good sharp puncher
not landing.
Not landing.
You know what I mean?
That's it. So he had the hurricane style of the swarm of a beehive and putting a guy in defensive posture, but he couldn't pinpoint, get him on the chin there, put him in a body here. He didn't put it all together. He was just swarming and overwhelming, and that's when Thurman could put himself in defensive posture, assess where he was, step out, and hit him from the outside like I told you he probably could do. And that's what he did.
Yeah, it's sometimes it makes you wonder where they're at and all that stuff. But I want to talk a little about the Joshua Brazil fight. But right now we got Dax Khan joining us, Sal, and Dax wants to talk to us a little bit about what's going on in social media. What's up, Dax?
Morning,
hey,
Dax.
what's going on? How's everybody doing? Everybody enjoy their break? Everybody enjoy their 4th of July?
Yeah. I still got all my fingers and toes, and we did almost have a, I was telling Sal, my brother has a big 4th of July party every year, and they put on this great fireworks display, and there was one rogue firework that almost took out half the crowd, but, once everybody recovered from that, I'm not kidding you, it was the close. He's got a pretty nice setup, and they're shooting off, and I'm talking really nice fireworks display, and one kind of, instead of shooting up, it shot across. I'm like, oh, God, I pictured, landed in the woods, fire, typical. If somebody was filming it, it could have been pretty funny, but it could have been real dangerous, but everybody survived. Everybody left with their fingers, toes, no burns, and it was good. It was fun stuff.
I had all my excitement on Friday. I don't know when you got home exactly, Bill, but we had quite a hell of a storm down here.
Really?
And I'm driving home Friday. Went over to where a friend of mine works, and I'm driving home on the back road, and all of a sudden my phone goes off, and I'm starting to see the sky get real dark, and on my phone it's one of those emergency alerts saying that there is a tornado coming, a tornado. And, so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden everything just starts downpouring, and my car starts moving, and I get stuck on this road where I have no idea. I never went to this road. I'm going, using the GPS to navigate around, and I'm stuck in between two down power lines, and both of them fell, and they went on top of, somebody had dumped some leaves or something like that. So here I am on this road for about an hour and a half, stuck between two fires.
Oh, jeez.
And I was there for about 2 hours, and I'm just standing there, and I'm saying, I guess I really don't have to do anything Monday because I have all my entertainment here.
There you go. And I'm getting entertained with all the noises that comes from Sal's microphone.
I hope you didn't hear that.
We heard it all, Sal. I mean, first it sounds like you're in a pit of rattlesnakes or something. Every time you slide,
right?
he's eating muffins, and I don't know what he's doing now. I mean, are we going to start hearing like, what you're building a house over there? What are you doing, Sal? I mean, can you keep it down a little? I mean, I'm trying to listen to Dax. Come on.
I think
Jeez.
it was a noisy car without a muffler next door down the road.
I don't know what's happening, but we're hearing it all. So everybody, we're gonna have a contest. If you can guess what Sal was just doing and be the first one to email me, you'll win one of his T-shirts too.
Absolutely.
But Dax, what's going on with social media, my man?
All right, this the last couple of weeks since we have been really inactive here, the hottest things that a lot of people have been talking about, not only on social media but fight fans amongst themselves. First of all, we'll start with the PBC in this last week, and the PBC in general, considering you guys are just speaking about Thurman-Porter, they're scouting and their favorites. The way they hype their favorites, the house fighters, more than anybody I've ever seen in the sport, period. Last week, Jamel Herring took on Denis Shafikov. I like Herring, but, how was he the favorite to beat Shafikov? A 7-1 favorite, I think he was. The PBC team acted shocked that Shafikov was going to work on Herring, and everybody would just kind of stood there with their mouth open when Herring went down in that second round. Jamel Herring's biggest wins are over Luis Flores and Jacobo Amadou. Shafikov's only 2 losses are against Miguel Vasquez and Rances Barthelemy, who might be the best 135-pound fighter in the world. Sure, Herring has a great backstory, good amateur career. He was also captain of the 2012 team, but as a professional, he's not been in with anyone near the likes of Shafikov. I don't understand how they did not figure out that this was going to be a major step up for Herring, and what is this going to do to him mentally? Also,
wait a minute, stop. Take a breath. Hold on a sec. But the point is that this follows what we've been saying for months and months, years. You know, they put too much emphasis in the O, and because Jamel came in there undefeated, everybody assumes, including the new fan, that's been brainwashed by this presentation. Let's just say that the presentation of quality being synonymous with an undefeated record. I think that these types of fights, and I hate to use the word exposed, Dax, because I think a lot of people overuse that word. But in this case, I agree with you. You're 100% correct. And how about the referee? That was another form of refereeing, in my opinion, that sucked in that fight. Every time those two guys came close, he would break them up. We had an email earlier about body shots. It's almost like they're trying to eliminate infighting. Did you notice that? Every time they even... I mean, if a fighter's got a free hand, let him fight his way out, right?
Absolutely.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Well, crazy stuff. Anyway, I just I wanted you to take a breath, and now what were you about to run into?
Also on that card, another fight on there was the Wilkie Camphor and Patrick Szymanski fight. Again, this was something where they thought this was going to be a showcase fight for Wilkie Camphor. Sure, Szymanski has no names of note on his resume, but he's a solid amateur. He had a solid amateur career, and he learned a professional style by putting the work into the gym, which is what a lot of these guys today don't do. They don't go into that gym, and they don't go in with a variety of opponents to prepare them to go in there against that higher level, is what you were supposed to do in the old days. Am I right or wrong, Sal?
You're 100% correct.
But wait, you think that they were billing Camphor as Silky Wilkie as the favorite in that? I thought it was the other way around. I thought Wilkie I thought that he put on a good showing, but I think that he's an example of one of the fighters that signed with Al Heyman and was conned. I think that he was built up to be put in as an opponent. His last 2 fights, he's been fed to other fighters. He got knocked out in his previous fight, and I thought he was taking kind of a beating in this fight for a little while.
And it wasn't until I think around the 6th round did he start to come alive. But even then, he was being clearly outboxed by an unknown, virtually unknown. But then again, we've seen on the PVC a few unknowns from overseas come over and make a name for themselves. Wilkie Camphor, speaking of that, in that last fight against Charlo, how was Wilkie Camphor, even at a time when there's as many different versions of a world title as the guys who are fighting for that belt have a win, how did he become one of the 2 guys in that fight, the other one being Jamal Charlo, to fight for that vacant IBF title?
That's ridiculous. And what about the size difference between Wilkie and Charlo? I mean, that looked like the Mike Tyson punch out. Little Joe. You were fight. But the Szymanski fight. He's actually stationed in Florida now. Chico Rivas is his trainer, and I think that I just thought that was more of a showcase for him, and that they're kicking Camphor to the side. I don't know. That was a weird fight. You're right, man. That was a strange fight.
And if that's the case, you know what, Bill? You hit it right on the head about being conned. If all of a sudden now you're using one of your guys that you brought in there originally, and you put him in a bad matchup, and he took a beating, and now all of a sudden you're using him to build new talent, that's pretty unfair. I don't care how well you're paying somebody. You know something? You should help this guy get his career back on track. Because Wilkie Camphor, not a bad fighter. Now, speaking of the Charlos, Demetrius Andrade. His win last month over Willie Nelson was fantastic. Willie Nelson is no easy out for anybody. Andrade showed a new attitude in that fight. Did anybody else happen to notice that besides me?
No, I listen. I think he's the best junior middleweight out there, and I personally, they're saying that one of the Charlo brothers has to fight him next, and I'm looking forward to that. Even though I think the Charlo brothers are out of a weight class, they seem too big.
He has to fight. That was an eliminator for the WBC 154-pound title, which I think is Jamel who holds that title. Now, speaking of the Charlos, they have yet to really legitimize themselves among boxing fans, even PBC fans. Did Demetrius Andrade go in there and talk or perform himself out of a title fight? Now, looking at the way Andrade performed in that fight, knowing that if he goes in against a Charlo, if he goes on a PBC broadcast card, even if he wins 8 rounds before clearly, as if he doesn't stop Charlo, he's still going to lose on the cards. I'm curious to know, did Demetrius Andrade in that fight do himself a favor, or did he hurt himself? And how is Al Heyman or the WBC going to find a way not to give Andrade his fight against Charlo next?
Well, I tell you what, and I don't know how you feel, Sal, but I think that the Al Heyman, forget the PBC, Al Heyman, who, by the way, is making money from his fighters' purses, whether the PBC crashes and burns, whether they're in the negatives a gazillion dollars or not, does not mean that Al Heyman's losing a nickel, because none of it's his money. But anyway, I think that it's pretty. You can see the fact right now that Al Heyman is putting his fighters in fights that are more competitive. The Thurman-Porter fight is indicative of that. The Wilkie fight against Szymanski, both of those fighters were Al Heyman fighters. And now with the Charlo brothers, one of them is going to have to fight Demetrius. One of them has to. Demetrius has clearly, he was a big name in the division before he somehow lost his title because of promotional differences, etc. Now he's back in the mix, and just like Dax said, Sal, Willie Nelson was no slouch. I mean, that was an interesting fight. I thought that Demetrius made it look easier than it was going to be. I thought that Willie Nelson was definitely going to give him a tougher fight.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I'll tell you, Demetrius did a great job outboxing him and just really laying it into him.
Laid him out. I mean, at the end of that, I mean, he was he put him down, So
I know.
And I mean, he's been down before.
Willie Nelson didn't really look like he got a chance to get back into or get in the fight.
Well, Willie Nelson has been down before, and I think that because of his one-punch knockout power, I think that was his game plan from the beginning. He just couldn't knock out Demetrius, So I like the fight, and I agree with you, Dax.
Yeah, I said for a while, and a matter of fact, on the show, me and you've had some back and forth about that. I've said for a few years now that Demetrius Andrade is the best 154-pounder in the world right now, and he's huge too. I agree.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is he bigger than the Charlo brothers? They're pretty big. I mean, when they fought Silky, they just look like they were monsters in the ring. They have to hydrate up. They have to be like the Canelo type fighter who hydrates up 20 pounds for fight night.
Maybe. I thought Andre looked pretty big against Nelson, and Willie Nelson's a big guy himself.
He's tall. Yeah, he's tall. But I'm talking the whole body. I mean.
Yeah, that's what I mean physically.
So yeah, well, interesting stuff. Any other big topics on social media?
Yeah, two more. One. In terms of steps that we speak about, on how they bring a fighter along and how they shouldn't, and how they're not progressing. There's a guy out there who, in my opinion, is kind of taking a step backwards, and I'm just a little bit confused exactly how this is going on. Is Andre Ward, he's going to face Alexander Brand on August 6th before the Sergey Kovalev fight. The same 39-year-old Alexander Brand that was rejected by the networks as an opponent not too long ago. Now, the question is, does HBO not want to chance Ward being upset and the Kovalev fight not happening? Or is Alexander Brand the only guy willing to travel to Oakland, where Andre Ward seems almost as though he has a phobia to fight anywhere else? But this, to me, says Andre Ward has lost so much clout in the sport and has developed such a reputation for being hard to work with. He's on thin ice with a lot of people. He's only a draw in Oakland. His promoters, not the PBC, they're not paying PBC-type money for opponents to come in and take a loss so their star can look good. His opponents, they can afford to reject the potential bout, reject the loss, go for something more profitable. So is Andre Ward at a stage in his career where if no question he's going to get by Alexander Brand. But if he does not win against Sergey Kovalev, is he all of a sudden going to become the forgotten man due to his own attitude, his arrogance, his constant talk, and just Andre Ward really right now is getting on a lot of people's nerves.
Well, he's the biggest diva in the sport right now. There's no question about that. But I will say this, and I agree with you, and I don't know how Sal feels, but I agree with you about the question mark and the confusion, so to speak, that seems to be out there among boxing fans. You know, why they reject the fight against Brand the first time around and now it's accepted. It's simple. Because both fighters, let's be fair, you know, Kovalev too, you know, they both picked easy fights to lead up to their match between each other. I mean, let's be real. Kovalev is supposed to be the best light heavyweight in the division. I think he is. I love watching a guy fight, and he picked a layup in Isaac Chilimba. I know that Chilimba is a tough fighter. I know he's tough. I know you can never count him out. But the bottom line is he's fighting in Russia. And he's coming off of a couple of questionable performances, and I think that they're too easy. Let's make these guys look good type fights to continue the billing between Kovalev and Ward. Now, as far as what you said, if Ward loses to Kovalev, you know, I think the cry, and that's what will happen. There'll be a trail of tears all the way through the state of California, and they're going to start blaming everybody for making him fight outside his weight class. You watch. They're going to go, oh, well, they forced him to move up to 175. He really is the natural 168er. They're going to have every excuse known to man should he lose to Kovalev, which I think he will. And not only do I think Kovalev will beat him, I think Kovalev stops him.
I tend to agree with you on that one. Now, speaking of Russia, you know, the newest thing here going on is, you know, Alexander Povetkin has been cleared by WADA, but he's going to get the Deontay Wilder fight.
I don't know. I was going to ask you that. I'm glad that was one of your questions. There was two questions I want to ask you about social media. One is that the WADA has released a report saying that he did, he didn't have enough in his system, and that according to their report, he should be cleared of all accusations. And I don't know. Does that mean? I mean, you know that his team has a $35 million lawsuit in place. Lou DiBella and Al Heyman and their crew have a lawsuit against them in place. I mean, it's a joke. Is the fight going to happen? That's my question. I think it should. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, I think it should. Definitely should. And we got to see how it comes to fruition. But I think all indicators, this fight has to happen.
How does social media react, Dax?
Well, it's kind of down the middle. One, everybody is really on the edge right now about dirty fighters, considering we're just having this constant outbreak. Every week it almost seems as if somebody's testing dirty, especially if it's over in Russia. But then on the other hand is, people are saying, you know something, this drug was only put on the banned list on January 1st. Any samples taken before October 1st, 2016 that have less than 1 microgram of meldonium, they are not going to be disqualified. So, considering how much Povetkin had in his system, considering when this was on the ban list, what do you do here? You know, this is kind of like somebody who's been driving for a long time, and all of a sudden you can't make a right on red. And you don't know this, you've been driving for 40 years. You make a right on red, you stop, you get a ticket.
Wait a minute.
Officer,
wait a second.
Been in effect for 2
You can make a right on red.
You can make a right on red. When did they change that?
Yeah. Really?
You know, no.
Not down in Georgia.
Yeah. Well, you get shot in Georgia if you make a right on red. They shoot you. But
you can make a right on left. They don't.
Dax. All kidding aside, I've always thought that Team Wilder jumped for joy and let out a sigh of relief when they found a way to get out of this fight. And the pick of Chris Arreola instead is indication to me that Wilder really didn't want any part of Povetkin. And I think they're going to try to avoid him. I think they're trying to label him as a cheater. And we don't want to fight him because he's not following the rules, etc. But it's still a fight I think has to be made. I got to see Deontay Wilder fight a real opponent that's relative and relevant to the division right now. Not a guy that used to be, or not a guy that could be. A guy that's in there right now. A real, legitimate, computerized top 10 guy. Not a guy that appears in the rankings like Chris Arreola magically became number 10 in the WBC to make this fight viable for Deontay Wilder.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Of course, after the Anthony Joshua fight, which is the topic, Anthony Joshua, Wilder, let's get this fight made now, knowing it's not going to happen that quick, because there's somebody else that Anthony Joshua's on a collision course with that, something, will be a bigger fight worldwide, not just, not in the United States, not just in the UK, but worldwide. Boxing's a global sport, and that's going to be the Joseph Parker fight.
Well, I was just going to say, there's the difference. If anybody wants to know why I feel so high on Anthony Joshua, here's the difference. Deontay Wilder, who claims he's the best heavyweight in the world, who's got the more experience, his choice of fighter is Chris Arreola. You take Anthony Joshua, he wins 2 back-to-back big fights, and he ups it a notch. Joseph Parker is another young, up-and-coming fighter. That's his next opponent. This is what I like about Anthony Joshua. He continues to challenge himself. He continues to get better. And I said it when he had about 5-6 fights under his belt as a pro. I said this guy's the future of the heavyweight division, and I still feel he is. I still feel that he's the best. Dax, we're running out of time, but I got to ask you one more question about social media and give us an update on what's going on with this. It was announced the other day that Antonio Margarito is going to be fighting Alvarez, not Canelo Alvarez, but his brother, Ramon Alvarez, in his next fight, scheduled for August 13th. There was a lot of, pros and cons about Antonio Margarito coming back. What's the word in social media now? How are the fans reacting to his second fight of his most recent comeback?
It's become a joke, because Antonio Margarito is so forgotten and so disliked that people actually find it a joke. It's to the point where anybody who has Antonio Margarito on the card becomes one of the an internet meme. They just become the example of everything that's wrong with the fight, everything that's wrong with sport. Speaking of another issue that's been a hot topic on social media the last few days is Erkin Tepper. He gets a win over Derek Ross yesterday. He should not have been fighting. He failed a test last July after his fight against David Price. That suspension was given by both the German Boxing Federation and the EBU. Yet they went back on their morals and they let him fight anyway. He was supposed to be out for 2 years. Wasn't even out 10 months. He had no testing organization like WADA, as in the Pavek and Wilder instance, where someone disputed something for him. What happened here? Where's the integrity? How did this guy just be allowed back in the ring all of a sudden? And, and both of these sanctioning bodies acted as though the incident never happened.
I have a one-word answer. Germany. That's why. Germany. That's the reason. They do what they got to. We complain about Russia, but Germany's just as bad. Yes, Dax was 100% right what he said earlier. He says, everybody that fights in Russia, if you beat the Russian, you're going to all of a sudden test positive for something. It's crazy. But Germany has traditionally went against the grain as well. So that doesn't shock me at all, so.
And my last, I promised on the Keith Thurman and Thurman-Porter post-fight show, I was going to mention what I said about Anthony Joshua. Just like everybody, as you guys stated, we all know, we notice how he drops that left. It's no new habit. It's a bad habit, but it's not a new habit. But Anthony Joshua is falling in love with his role as the savior of the heavyweight division. His social media interaction has had some swagger to it, as well as his public interaction, whether he's in interviews and especially when he's in the ring. Anthony Joshua and that low hand has been, and that's what caused him to get buzzed by Dillian White. And it's become a bad habit. If you watch Anthony Joshua against Dominic Breazeale, when he was in full control, he actually let his hands down at times. He was looking at the crowd. He was mugging. He had the arrogant look on his face. Reminded me very much of another guy, who I'm a big fan of, and that's Lennox Lewis at that stage. Lennox Lewis, in the McCall fight, he learned his lesson, we thought. He comes back, he wins, he makes up for that, and then he gets stunned in bouts like the Mercer fight, the Tua fight, because he got cocky. Then he goes and he gets knocked out in the Rothman fight. He comes back, he gets his revenge, and then what you do, he overlooks Vitaly Klitschko. Lennox Lewis was lucky in that fight that Vitaly was cut, or else Lennox would have lost that. I see this happening in Anthony Joshua, where his head is starting to become a little bit full of himself because he's a young guy, and this fame has become to him real fast. Remember, he doesn't even have 20 fights, and everybody's in his ear talking about how he is the savior of the sport. And in my opinion, it's starting to show through in his attitude. Little by little, I see it every time he's in public and he's at some sort of social function.
Dax, I appreciate your thoughts. Really good points. We're going to be wrapping it up in here in a second, and we'll look forward to your next report, whether we're reporting on fights or social media. I like the social media stuff. I like keeping us up to date on that. And if anything hot comes along, even later in the week or whatever, we'll make some plans to have you come on and get us up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time, come on, we got to talk about the Roman Gonzalez and Carlos Cuadras quotes from their press conference, and a little bit of a change in Roman Gonzalez's attitude, and is Roman Gonzalez looking past Carlos Cuadras in his next fight?
We'll talk about that maybe Thursday.
Absolutely. Everybody, enjoy your day.
All right, brother. Take care. That's Dax Khan, Sal, and I gotta respectfully disagree with Dax on the Anthony Joshua thing as we close the show now. Anthony Joshua did knock out Dominic Breazeale, retaining his IBF World Heavyweight title last weekend or 2 weekends ago. And I disagree with what Dax was saying real quick, Sal. I think that Anthony Joshua is a humble fighter. I think that he is open for learning more, and I think that he's totally accepted the fact that he's still developing, even though I hate to use it because once a fighter is a title holder, you can't use that I'm still developing BS. But I do think he is, and I think the difference between him and the points that Dax is making, which are totally valid, and a lot of fighters do believe their own press clippings after a while. I'm not so sure with Anthony Joshua, but I guess we'll see when he fights Joseph Parker.
We will see, and like I said, I think Dax. One of the things that I did agree with was, that hand. You can't drop that hand and sweep that hand. You got to start paying attention to that. That's going to be one of your significant flaws. People are going to jump on that and wait for that to happen, take advantage, and come on over with a hard overhand right, and just time it perfectly. I think he is a good human being. I like him. I'm excited about him. I'm glad he's a champion. I think he could do a lot of good for the heavyweight division and the sport. Like you and I have mentioned, there's several crop of fighters out here today that I think are a credit to the game. And we pool them together. We'll have some good champions in each weight class one day, and we'll let them see if they can continue to keep the flag and rising high on boxing.
Between the rattlesnakes that are in your background and the kamikaze planes flying over here, that it sounds like I'm getting bombed any minute.
I mean, you'd hear that.
I'm like, geez, what are the B-52s flying over? I mean, geez, But you got to remember these newfangled microphones pick everything up. I think I heard you fart before too. I think that was a fart you just did. But anyway,
it works big.
Hey, Sal, I appreciate it. We look forward to tomorrow. Hopefully Sal won't be making as much noise. I do want to say this: on this day in boxing history, and tomorrow we'll have some more trivia questions for you guys to win some stuff. As a matter of fact, for you winners that are still waiting for prizes, I sent them out. So the trivia prizes should be arriving one day this week. And speaking of prizes, I want to give a special shout out to my man Blakely, because Billy C Challenge, which we have a lot of fun with. And for anyone that doesn't know about it, you pick the fights and we give out prizes for the monthly winners. Well, last month, for the month of May, Blakely won. And then he wins back-to-back. He won the month of June as well. And he requested something from you, Sal. He wants one of these new Sal's Pizzeria T-shirts. So can you make it happen?
I'd be glad to make that happen. You give me his name and address and his shirt size and color. And if I have that shirt in stock, I will gladly mail it out to him. It is one of my new shirts. It has out of the Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria logo, as well as the logo of my being inducted into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, and also my Guinness Book of World Records comeback fight.
And it's got the phone number on the back, so you can order a pie too.
Absolutely.
And the same shirt. The same shirt.
More. Now I feel like Ron Papille.
No, that's right. No, and wait, there's more, because if you act now, Sal will include a signed photo of himself that in a boxing pose. So I mean, and if you act now for a limited time only, you'll get a free cannoli with an order of pizza too. But anyway, on this day, July 5th. In 1975, Alfredo Escalera knocks out Kunaki Shibata in the second round to win the WBC junior lightweight title. Took place in Japan. On this day in 1986, Eli Pacquiao knocks out Cesar Polanco in the third round to regain the IBF junior bantamweight title. Took place in Jakarta, Indonesia. On this day in 1984, Jairo Wantabe wins a 12... I wanted to be something too. Wins a 12-round decision over Payano Puntarat to win. Who wrote these? Why are you making it so hard? Isn't there any Joe Smiths that I can announce today? To win the WBC junior bantamweight title. Took place in Osaka, Japan. On this day in 1909, Sal Rocky Senecola was... Oh, no, wait. On this day in 1909, Stanley Ketchel wins a 20-round decision over Billy Papke to retain his world middleweight title in Coloma, California. FYI, 3 months later, Ketchel would challenge Jack Johnson for the world heavyweight title. 3 months later, you heard correctly, not 3 years later, 3 months later, he would get knocked out in the 10th round of a scheduled 20-round fight on October 16th in 1909. And on this day, July 5th in 1920, Benny Leonard, who happens to be our blast from the past this week, so make sure you tune in tomorrow to hear about him. He knocks out Charlie White in the 9th round in the fight in Michigan. The fight was supposed to be a world title fight. You know how we talk about fighters, Sal, not being disciplined, not making weight? Well, Benny Leonard, who was the champion, he didn't make weight. He weighed 137 and a quarter pounds, so the title was not on the line. But Benny Leonard still gets the win on this day in 1920. Hey, man, make sure you tune in tomorrow. We will be doing our blast from the past. It will be on Benny Leonard, the late, great Benny Leonard. We'll tell you a lot about him and what he was all about and his influence on the sport of boxing. We also are scheduled to hear from my man, Larry Hazard, Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Boxing Commissioner, giving his thoughts. We'll talk about the Porter fight, the Anthony Joshua, and some judging things that are going on in the sport today, judging and refereeing. And we'll keep you up to date on everything else. Any final thoughts real quick, Sal?
I'll tell you, you hit all points real fast. I think that was great, very efficient, and you could keep my my day. April 13th next year. It'll be 4 years, so we'll let you remember that next year.
Hey, I expect to see. I expect to see you in a brand new pair of rattlesnake boots, because you gotta be in a rattlesnake pit right now.
Hey,
but
let me tell you something about rattlesnakes. One day I was out from my front yard cutting the lawn, and all of a sudden the grass was a little tall. Now I know why these guys in this 100-degree heat keep these grass on their lawn so mowed short. You know, usually when the hot sun and everything else, you want to keep the grass blade a little longer. But no, not here. You keep it short to burn, whatever happens. But the bottom line is this: I found out one day I'm mowing my lawn, and there was a rattlesnake. I tried to avoid, and that damn thing started rattling his tail. Was coming at me. I had to get a shovel, and I decapitated.
Well, hey,
it was right there in my yard.
Hey, listen, I'm not a big snake guy. I'm not a big snake guy, and as long as I don't see them, they can live. But I don't care what they are. I don't like them around. But judging by all the sounds of the rattlesnakes in the background during this broadcast, I'd be careful leaving your studio.
Tiptoeing real delicately on the lawn here.
Hey, listen, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.
Ciao, baby. We'll see you. Thanks.